Okay, let's dive right into this. Today, we're exploring an incredibly rich, intensely detailed, dark fantasy landscape known as the Grim Shadows universe. Created by rising star author R.C. Rucker, this is a world that completely rejects all those bright, shiny, traditional tropes of fantasy. And sitting right at the center of it all is his breakthrough novel, Starfaller, a book that has been making some serious waves for its uncompromising, gritty vision. In this explainer, we're going to totally dissect the anatomy of this living, breathing, dark world.
So here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the aesthetic of darkness. Then, the mask of Starfaller, killers versus villains, horrors of the void, and finally, the cosmic library. Let's get to it.
Section 1, the aesthetic of darkness. Let's talk about the real-world foundations.
To really understand the Grim Shadows universe, we actually have to go back in time a bit, straight into the underground club scene of 1990s New York City. You see, as a young man, R.C. Rucker frequented goth clubs like the Bank and the Batcave, and this birthed his core concept of aesthetic darkness. It's all about finding genuine beauty in things that society normally just dismisses as dark, gloomy, or weird. Growing up, he wasn't looking at knights in shining armor. No way. He was drawn to vampires and werewolves. Inspired by morally complex, dark fantasy figures like Carl Edward Wagner's Cain and Michael Moorcock's Elric, he completely threw out the bright, shiny hero trope. You know, those characters who always save the day but never actually face any lasting consequences? Yeah, they don't exist here.
And this brilliantly illustrates his whole approach to character building. R.C. Rucker actually said, "I like people who have been through things. I like scars." And that quote just perfectly hits the nail on the head. He fundamentally distrusts characters who have just breezed through life without facing any serious challenges. I mean, for him to find a character compelling, they literally need to have taken a real beating from life and somehow found a way to get back up. That lived-in trauma, that resilience, that is the absolute lifeblood of his universe.
Moving on to Section 2, the Mask of Starfaller. Time to unmask our protagonist.
Stepping into the world of Tanalon in the first era of this setting, we meet Starfaller. He's this mysterious elf assassin who's risen up to lead an organization called the Grim Shadows. But beneath that capable exterior, the guy has some massive, glaring flaws. He absolutely obsesses over having control of his own life, but ironically, he's trapped in this toxic love-hate relationship with the Grim Shadows. He totally resents their control over him, even though he would die for them. But his biggest, most fatal flaw is his obsession with strength. He flat out refuses to appear weak under any circumstance. Rucker points out this creates a huge blind spot. Like, if Starfaller's old mentor, Thorn Blackflame, were kidnapped, Starfaller wouldn't even make a sacrifice to save him if it made him look weak. He would literally rather sabotage a deal than surrender from a position of weakness. Now, this intense obsession with strength might actually be tied to his mysterious nature. Notice how uncannily Starfaller resembles the Shadowborn. They are this terrifying nightmare race of wild elves from a realm of eternal night, and they share his exact traits: the cold black skin, the glowing silver eyes, the ability to conjure shadow weapons, the whole shebang. But there is a catch. The Shadowborn are cursed. If they stay in the mortal realm, they suffer immense physical pain and are literally dragged back to their nightmare plane. Starfaller doesn't feel that pain, and he doesn't feel that pull, which, of course, sparks all these dark, in-universe rumors about who he really is. Is he a tyrant-born dark elf? Or something way more dangerous? But here's the thing. Starfaller's desperate quest to maintain his strength leads him to make some terrible bargains. Driven by his lust for power and trying to uncover his own forgotten past, he makes a deal with this entity called the Eye of Shadows. And looking at its jagged edges and monstrous design, you can tell right away, this is not just some handy magical tool. It is an ancient, sentient devil that knows nothing but pure hunger. It doesn't care one bit about his goals, who he loves, or who he hates. So the real tragedy here is this massive irony. The more Starfaller leans on this artifact to gain control and break free from the people manipulating him, the more chains he ends up wrapping around his own soul. So you have to wonder, will he ever truly be free? Rooker just leaves that hanging like a dark cloud over the entire narrative. Because in this world, chasing ultimate power always exacts the highest price. All right, Section 3, Killers versus Villains. Let's examine the moral philosophy at play here. Let's get one thing straight right now. The protagonists of this universe are absolutely not heroes.
They aren't helping anyone cross the street. Rucker actually categorizes his main characters as killers, and he contrasts them against actual villains. You see, the Grim Shadows are professionals. They kill on command. They'll burn your town to the ground if someone pays them enough coin to do it. The only reason we root for them, the only reason they're the good guys for us, is because the villains they face are just so much worse. They're fighting literal existential cosmic horrors. So it's not good versus evil, you guys. It's bad versus apocalyptic.
And the central rule that governs both the killers and the villains is just brutal. In this universe, you pay a price for everything. There's this invisible cosmic balance at work. The more power you seek, the more suffering you invite right to your front door. Whether you score a massive victory or suffer a crushing defeat, the universe demands a huge sacrifice. Absolutely nothing is free in the Grim Shadows universe.
Which brings us to Section 4, Horrors of the Void. Let's dive right into the cosmic lore. If you're a fan of H.P. Lovecraft or cinematic masterpieces of paranoia like John Carpenter's The Thing, you are going to love this. Rucker's universe features these sprawling, mind-bending existential threads. Looking at the deep history, way before the sun, the moon, or the gods, there was only the void. Eventually, the entities of the void, the old ones, went to war with the gods. These beings like Mazaroth the Unmaker were so incomprehensibly powerful that the gods couldn't even actually kill them. The best they could do was force them into an eternal slumber. But the scary part? They are always trying to wake up. And we really need to distinguish between the different types of cosmic horrors threatening this world. The void operates sort of like a cosmic infection. Its creatures create these gross nests to absorb the mortal realms and cut them off from creation entirely. But on the other hand, you have the abyss, also known as the graveyard of the gods. The abyss doesn't infect, it simply absorbs life just to feed its own endless hunger. And fun fact, Starfaller's Eye of Shadows doesn't actually come from the void. It's an artifact forged in the starving, deep darkness of the abyss.
Finally, let's step into Section 5, the Cosmic Library, and take a peek at Rucker's creative process.
So, how does one guy construct 3 totally different eras of fiction, fantasy, cyberpunk, and far-future sci-fi, mixing horror and fantasy with this much crazy lore detail? Well, Rucker relies on a very specific creative engine. First off, he absolutely despises flowery language. He prefers this grounded, super cinematic style where you can literally smell the blood in the room. And, this is wild, he actually credits his visual lyricism to hip-hop artists like the Wu-Tang Clan and Vinnie Paz. Plus, his horror relies on strict cause and effect logic, not just cheap jump scares. And, perhaps most importantly, zero plot armor. If 2 of his main protagonists run into each other in this interconnected world, there is a very good chance one of them won't make it out alive. Rucker's connection to his writing is just incredibly intense. I think his own words capture it best. It is almost as if I'm tapping into a library of written books, and I can only take a few out at a time. He describes this feeling of being almost possessed when he writes. It's like he isn't even inventing the story. He's just acting as a tool to manifest a world that already exists somewhere out there in the cosmos. His ideas come so fast, he struggles to even write them down fast enough. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. What happens when the desire for ultimate control becomes your very cage? That right there is the tragic paradox of Starfaller, and it's a massive warning sign embedded deep in the Grim Shadows universe. In a world where every single scrap of power demands a heavy price, the ultimate pursuit of strength might just be the exact thing that destroys you. It is such a fascinating look into a masterfully crafted dark fantasy, and one that definitely leaves you itching to see who actually survives the shadows. Thank you so much for exploring this grim, beautiful world with me today.